So this afternoon, I'm here with Andrew Brunette, who is a career professional hockey player, who's been actually a professional hockey player for 18 years. Andrew, right?
Yeah.
And now you're going into, I think it's your 13th full season with the NHL, with the Chicago Blackhawks, but you've been up and down with the NHL for about 16 years, I think.
Yeah, I think
3 years before you came to Nashville full time.
Yeah, 95-96 season was the first taste of the NHL.
Okay. And when you consider the number of years you played in the OHL, you were with Owen Sound for how long?
I was on Sound for 3 years.
So if we take a look at that, you can pretty well say that you've been a professional, because most of the OHL, you're almost professional at that level. I would say, right?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, you're playing, I guess, 66 games at that time, and people are paying to come and see you play, and your travel schedule and practice schedules very similar to National Hockey League or professional hockey.
So you're kind of living the pro. So you've been a pro for, wow, so over 20 years.
Yeah.
If you look at that. And I want to thank you for being part of this, because my name is Bob Kirwan. I'm the True Sport Community Animator for Northern Ontario. And one of the things that True Sport's trying to do is help organizations and groups and schools and coaches and volunteers, anyone who's involved with sport, to try and focus more on the positive values and principles that we should be trying to get young people to incorporate into their life, whether they're playing sport or whether they're involved in other activities. Things like they should all be trying to do the best of what they can, be the best of what they can be at whatever it is that they're doing. They should be having fun, they should be playing fair, following the rules, they should be staying healthy and being concerned about their health and not abusing their body with drugs or anything like that. They should be respecting other people, and then they should also be trying to give back to the community at some point. So they should be trying to make the community better in some way. So True Sport's trying to say, let's go out and let's meet with the people who are doing this. Let's try and get people to do this more when they're dealing with youth sport. And that way the entire community is going to be better, the quality of life of everyone is going to be better, because you're going to be building character in youth. So one of the reasons that I was really interested in talking to you is that when you take a look at playing as a professional in the NHL, you can't get any higher. I mean, you've been living a life that many people would consider is a sport, but there's also a business side to it. And one of the things that is not bothering me, but I've got certain mixed feelings about, is that a lot of people are blaming professional sport for the problems that we're having in minor sports in the field. And not just hockey, but the baseball, the steroids, and all of this kind of stuff. And so I wanted to talk to someone who, hey, you've been in the NHL, living in a number of different cities, you've played the game, you haven't been too bad at the game. I mean, the stats that you've got are on the website, but your stats are impressive, considering nobody thought you could skate. I mean, you've almost won a scoring championship in every league you've been in. I mean, your points records in the OHL and in, when you were playing in Portland and that are they're huge. And you've been able to, and this is the interesting thing, you've been able to do this. And I think when I looked at the stats, you've missed 3 games in 9 years, I think.
A lot of luck.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. So, our professional athletes, and in particular the NHL, Are you getting, is the public getting a fair impression of, well, it's a business, so nobody's having fun, they're just out to win. The playing fair doesn't really, play a factor in when you're at that level. There's a lack of respect because there's so much violence and there's so many injuries. And like, when you're actually in it, do you feel that you're, as a professional, following these principles that everybody says are so important to develop in sport?
Well, I think for me, and playing in the National Hockey League and playing all the way up, the thing that's always been there is a love of the game. And I love playing hockey. I mean, I love everything about it. There's, if you look at your, kind of joked about luck. I played barely missing games over the last 10 years or so, 12 years, and I think a lot of it is it comes down to I want to play. I mean, it's to me it's the greatest game in the world, greatest job in the world that you can go out, put on your skates, compete with your teammates. Everything else, and this is talking to me personally, is shut out. To me, it's the same as when I was a little kid here growing up in the East, playing with my buddies and going to play in Rayside or somewhere else. It's carried over the National Hockey League, all the steps up, junior, pro in Portland, and then the National Hockey League. That every game for me was the same as it was when I was a Pee-wee. I think nothing, and I've been very fortunate. You kind of set a goal that you try to limit all your distractions and just play the game.
The interesting thing is when you take a look at athletes like yourself, I don't think it's a whole lot different than if you're talking to a teacher, or you're talking to an accountant, or you're talking to somebody who's a golf pro. Talking to anyone who's doing a job that they love, that they're doing it because they like it. Mm-hmm. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't do it. Now, it's not your fault that the nature of the game is that athletes at any level get paid an awful lot of money. Yeah,
and I think, looking through the course of, my time, which has been, unfortunately, it's been a long time, but a fun time, is that my experience is the guys that make it, I'm talking every level, is because they love it. They love to play hockey. If you don't love it, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to every step of your career onward is a big step, and if you don't love it, it's way too hard to put out what you have to put out. And if you do make it because you had either talent or size or whatever, to have longevity, you have to love to play, because it takes a lot to get to each level. It takes a lot to play every game that you play.
So you take a look at a nurse, take a look at a barber, take a look at anybody doing any kind of particular job or career. Would you say that what you're going through is an awful lot what they're going through, that if you don't love it, if you don't like it, doesn't matter what amount of money you're getting, life is too short to waste?
Yeah, I think, if you look at a barber, for example, he could probably get away, and the hockey business is always different, obviously different than the barber business, but if he can get away with not, if he doesn't love cutting hair, and he does a poor job of cutting hair, he could probably last a lot longer than an NHL player that doesn't love the game and doesn't take pride in what he does. Chances are he's not going to be around very long.
Okay, that's fair enough. But the whole thing about liking what you do, I remember there's on the After the Whistle website, we talked about referees or people who were involved in hockey that maybe weren't talented enough to make it to the pro level as a player, but if they really loved the game enough, they could become an official. Mm-hmm. And work their way up. And even if they didn't make it as a professional, whether they're playing, as long as they love what they were doing, then that's the number one, I guess that's the number one priority. And I guess interestingly enough, when you take a look at that principle and that value, that's one of the things that sport is supposed to be getting across to young people. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you love this sport, do it. If you don't love this sport, go and find another one that you do like, because don't just do it for the money. Don't just do it. I imagine you've seen an awful lot of players in your time who have maybe lost their love for the game and are doing it because of the money, but because you don't like the game, you can't be performing
At your best, I don't believe. And, you know, I think with the money, if you go back, you know, what's kind of hurt, I think, professional sports in general is when they disclose what everybody made and you know, everybody's contract, and all of a sudden we're judging people on, you know, what they make.
Yeah.
So I think that's an unfortunate part of the game, or sport, that professional sports, the average, you know, fan looks at everybody's money instead of maybe looking at what kind of player he is. We've kind of lost sight of that, and I think now I've noticed a difference even going into the rinks for youth hockey. I mean, everybody, I grew up thinking I wanted to emulate the best players and try to be, I had no idea what the money is. Now I see these kids, they know how much money they make. That's the first question they ask. So I think, you know, you could blame pro sports, but I think there's a different avenue to that too.
Yeah. And when you take a look at the public sector, anybody that makes over $100,000 gets their salary published in the papers. Everybody, so even the doctors and the university professors and the teachers now, they have that salary revealed, and so now everybody's looking at it saying, oh yeah, look at how much you make. But and I guess that's a good point. I never thought about it with the hockey players, because I guess when you're playing against the player, you don't think, well, he makes more than I do, so he's better than me.
No, exactly.
You're not thinking about salaries. It's just,
no.
Like I said, you're not to blame for the salaries that the pros are making. That's just...
It's the way it is, yeah, and it's always been that way, just now it's disclosed to the public, and like I said, I think, you know, you go in the rink and everybody knows, you know, I think that puts a lot of pressure on the kids, that parents know how much, you know, hey, if little Johnny, if we push him to make the NHL, he's gonna, you know, he's gonna have a good job. And is that different? I guess the question is, and then if we saw a doctor's salary, do we push our kid to go to be a doctor? I mean, that's, you know, apples and oranges probably money-wise, but I mean, is it that much different? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a great question.
Look at you played at a pretty high level when you were playing with the midgets and with Rayside here and with Owen Sound. And you would have seen an awful lot of parents. I know your dad wasn't like that because I've known your dad since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
But did you see an awful lot of careers that were ended because parents were pushing their kids a little bit too hard and they lost their love for the game at the junior level?
I think when you got to junior, there was the odd case, for sure. I've seen a lot of it in my time, you know, growing up and seeing the interest waver and losing a little bit of love of the game, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, a lot of them kind of play out their stretch of minor hockey, but they've lost the love at Pee Wee or something, and they just kind of do it to you know, without the passion that I've seen them have when they were young kids. And a lot of it, you know, you don't point fingers or anything, but it does happen, and I've seen a lot of it, and I've seen some, you know, the numbers drop off in junior, because I think, you know, to get to that level, it takes so much even to get to junior hockey, and then the same with pro, it takes so much to get to pro that you've kind of broken away from your parents at that point. But I've seen, and it's sad, and a lot of players, kids that I grew up with and know, and that somewhere being either pushed too hard or prodded or whatever it is, just stop loving the game. And they were all really good players.
And as you say, if you don't have that love, you're just not going to become as good as you could.
Exactly. I think, like I said, it's not easy to play well, for one. Even as a kid, it's not easy to play well. If you don't love it, you're not going to play well. I don't think, or you'll sustain it for a bit, but sooner or later, the outside pressures or something happens that makes it really hard. If you don't love it, then the hard part becomes even harder.